Justin here with the Atlanta Brick Company, and I am joined once again by Mark. And we have something different and very special for you. This is a custom train. Jump in if I get any part of this story incorrect. A customer who got really big into trains, had not had that much previous experience with Lego, ordered a custom design, spent all the money to find the pieces, and the custom build that he ordered just did not work. It was very flimsy, from what I understand.
It was fragile. It was structurally unsound, and apparently he just had a lot of time finding He had a hard time finding all those pieces because it's like orange and yellow and just various shapes. So it's like if you don't have a big collection at home, you're not going to have the pieces. He was constantly having to make new orders and re-inventory, and he's like, even if he thought he had everything, he didn't.
Any mock builder's frustration.
Exactly, running out of pieces. And this is very specific stuff.
This was not a design that's from us or anything. It was a separate company that had this design. He traded it in along with all his other train stuff. Basically washed his hands of doing Lego trains, which I feel my heart is saddened.
It's sad, but yeah, he decided to take a break. So yeah.
Mark got a hold of it and rebuilt it. Now, I don't know anything about Lego trains. I do know that this is a marvel of engineering, and it has two motors because it's so huge. You'll see this is way bigger than the normal Lego train scale.
Yeah.
So can you explain to me kind of what you saw when you first got it, and then what you did to it?
Right, so what was here was the whole chassis was like the flat area here, like from back to front. You had the cab, which I left pretty much the same, just a few changes. And then, I think this area of the engine itself was somewhat complete. And then you had one of these, it's called a truck. It's where the wheels are located on the train. One of those was partially complete but falling apart. Everything else had to be done. And so I basically was like, I'm not going to worry about the instructions, although I think we may have had a copy emailed to us at the time. And so I'm just like, I'm just going to go off the picture, which is what I normally do. And we have plenty of pieces to work with here. So, and just enough orange, in fact, which is probably the hardest color to find. Okay. And so, just went off the pictures. I had to rebuild pretty much the whole flat area that was there because it was, first of all, too long. And the holes were designed for a different form of engine. This one uses a pretty standard, the older power function. So it just uses a battery pack and has a little controller. And it goes on any train track. And it uses a little four-wheel chassis. There's actually two of them in this train. And that's very easy to access. He was trying to use a very complex method of larger engines facing downwards and gear system to power the wheels. So it's like,
so it's not a direct.
It was a very. Okay. I've never seen that used in a train. However, I can understand why he would do that. Those engines are much more powerful, so it'd be easier to move a large train like this. So I can see why he was trying to do that, but it's way more complicated. And so we just were like, okay, scrap that. We're going to try and do the basic, simple way. However, it's so big, one engine wouldn't be enough, so I had to do two. Make sure they're both aligned the same way and attached to the same IR receiver here. Okay. So, yeah.
You can see that. There's the receiver right there.
You can barely see in the video, but there's a little bump right there. That's where the infrared sensor will get the signals from the...
It just smooths along with the rest of the contours.
Exactly. Thankfully, it's a black roof on the train, and it has a black little receiver point there.
So the original design did not have two engines?
It did. I think it might have.
Two motors.
It at least had one, and that would have been well enough to power it, but it might have had two.
Okay.
So we removed all those, changed where the holes are so that the wires, instead of an axle and a gear, now had wires at a different point. And then finished all the sides, stickers, railings, details on the bottom and the front. So it was
a complete redo, basically.
Pretty much. The only thing that stayed the same was like the windshield around the cab, because that looked pretty nice. But everything else had to be redone. So
this engine is too big to make turns on standard Lego angles.
We're having to test that to be sure, because it moves fine on a straight. When I tested it the first time, it shot right off the track that was about this size. But we haven't fully tested it on a curve yet, and this has 6 wheels on each end, which is like gigantic compared to a normal Lego train, which has maybe one train and then like a few wheels at the back. So it's like, but basically twice the size of normal trains. So we're gonna have to test to make sure that it can actually complete a turn. Otherwise, it's more of a display piece.
Yes. Well, it is a gorgeous display. It would be great over anyone's mantle. Cha-ching. Chris did mention that we have some custom curves, curved track that are wider than the standard Lego.
Yeah.
Are we going to test that first? Or are we going to try the standard Lego first?
I think we're going to try the standard Lego first because we definitely have a lot of that lying around.
Okay.
But we will probably be testing the larger curves if it doesn't work on the one. So we can at least say that can at some point turn.
Have you ever had to do something like this before where you took someone else's design and then fixed it?
I've done that before on different things. I'm trying to think of a specific example, but I'm drawing a blank. But I've never worked on a train before, so that was definitely a different experience for me. I've worked on vehicles before, but never a train. And so I really didn't know much about them before this project. Just like I knew about power functions because I had to explain that to customers when they ask what's the difference between 9-volt and power functions. But never worked on a train chassis and tried to make a realistic looking train before. So it was very fun.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it looks gorgeous. The finished product is great. Let's build some track and see if this will even make a turn. I have a good feeling. Yeah. I'm confident.
Yeah. I'm not as confident, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah, the guy who knows nothing is confident that it'll work. Okay, let's do it. Okay, there he is, the mad scientist, the mad genius at work. So we have our track set up. We didn't add any to the curve. This is the regular curve.
I think it's 16 curves, so 8 on each side. Is that right? Yeah. So.
All right, and then we put four straights on each side.
Just so that we have enough room to set the train on in a flat area first. Because normally I think a train loop is sold with a few less than 4 straights, but I'm not sure.
It does take a lot of finagling to get all those wheels on. Now, Mark, you were explaining the difference to me between the Lego track we have now and then the 9-volt system?
Yes. So the 9-volt system came out first. I don't think it's the first train tracks that Lego ever made. And they just plug into the wall, which is super convenient. So you have a whole track that's all metal and it's just current going through it. And the train gets the power through the wheels. And so you can just turn a dial over here and the train will go around as long as you got power. So it's great for long-term train driving. You got the newer one with the battery, and that does not have metal in the tracks. It does not have a current through the track. It just has a battery-powered engine. It's a little safer. It's probably a little bit cheaper to produce, but the problem is it doesn't run all day. So as soon as you run out of batteries in the train, which is about a day's worth of driving, you have to replace the batteries. It's a bit more work, a bit more maintenance. So,
is there one you prefer?
I actually prefer the newer style a little bit more, just because it's so much easier to get. It's a lot cheaper. The 9-volt stuff is all very expensive because they haven't made it in 20 years. So this stuff's easier to get, and I don't run it all day, so it doesn't bother me if you have to replace the batteries every now and then. So we're gonna do one more time here. I was able to get it to move, but as soon as it hit a turn, it might have been too steep here. Oh.
Is that,
It's stopping. You can hear it kind of whistling, whining. I think it's getting kind of caught up because it has 6 wheels, not 4. So I think the turn is possible. Oh. Right there. I think the front's clear, but the back right there, as soon as you get to a certain point, it hits right there. So thankfully, this has a bit of a contingency here. You can move it forward. So we're going to test that and see if that works better. However, it was having a bit of trouble on those turns, so we'll see if this improves the movement of it here. All right, let's just do one more time here. Ooh. And it stopped again.
It made it farther this time.
It made it farther, so I think now it would be possible, but it's just running out of oomph. And it feels kind of tight when I try and push it on there, So it's physically possible, but I think it's lacking the power once you turn it that tight. So
is it weight, like all the weight's back here when it's turning, and so there's not enough pull?
I know that in driving off-road, if you turn the wheels too fast on a car in muddy terrain, it'll just, like a front-wheel driving, for example, it'll just start to spin because it's not lining up with the weight of the vehicle. The torque is just spinning too quickly. So as soon as I put the gas on the train and it starts to go around, it starts to go, so it's running out of, I think, traction, and the weight, the length is not playing along with the turn here.
So, Doctor, what are we going to try?
I don't think it's going to be normally possible for this train to turn that quickly on just a normal train track. So we can try doing the Lego tracks, but just put a straight between each turn and see if that improves the turning radius for this guy. If that doesn't work, we might have to try the custom tracks, which may be even more gentle of a turn. So we got a few options, but we'll see how it goes. Right now, I don't think it's going to work on a normal turn.
While Mark is looking for a battery, I thought I'd show you how it comes apart. You just take that off and just plug it into the power functions right there, like that.
So after extensive testing, we have determined that it may have been the batteries that was causing some of the downfall of the first test. Even just lifting the train off of the tracks, the wheels eventually stop spinning, and they should just keep spinning regardless. That suggests that that battery pack we're using, the batteries were low on power. So this one we've determined is a little bit better. It might not still be 100% power, but at least it is seeming to run the normal motors faster than the other one we were testing on. So hopefully this will be a better example of what it's able to do. So if that doesn't work, then it might not be power related. It might just be it's just too heavy for the two engines, but at least we'll give it a fair shot. Test number 2. Well, it tried. So it goes on a straight, but as soon as you get to a curve, it doesn't go around. So after extensive testing and experimentation, we have determined that the two power functions engines are not strong enough to pull the weight of the engine around just because it's so big. So we're going to try and use the other technique with the engines going down. It's a slightly more powerful engine. It's not the one used for trains, it's one used for like a Technic project, a vehicle, a crane. So we're going to try that and see if that works better. But that means extensively reworking that train one more time. So we'll get back to you as soon as that's completed. Ooh, almost. Almost, not quite enough. So it actually, almost made it.
It's making it. I think it'll make it.
Come on, be the big engine that could. Such like life, we're all just spinning our wheels, not getting anywhere.
This is 2020 in a train. It's trying, but it can't.
It's after a couple of days of rebuilding.
Models.
Oh, it made it! It made it!
Oh,
Stuck for a little bit.
you can do it. Mark, I am so proud of you.
It gets a little stuck on the corners there.
Got enough speed? Yeah. It does look kind of funny when it goes around because it's so big, but at least it works.
That's awesome. It does better than it used to.
I'm sure it could pull.
So this is size comparison with the Hogwarts Express. This is the newest version. That is a behemoth. And Mark did it. Mark figured out how to get the thing to run. We're trying it with the custom wider track. There he goes, lining up all the little wheels. Here we go. Yep. That's a custom coal car. That one came with this train as well. It was another custom coal car. So I guess that makes sense because it is sized in comparison to this big old boy right here. Is that a made-up train company right there? So that's a legit graphic there. This poor woman, this coffee girl, this barista is going on a ride. Oh, he's got the juice on.
That seems to pull better than the single car.
Yep, it doesn't go fast, but it just has plenty of power to it, yeah.
Mark spins like 40.
Nope, lost a piece on the full car. Sometimes the corners,
Yay! Success! It
All
worked.
done.
You did it. Explain how you did it.
Right. The body of the train remained essentially the same. I didn't even have to remove the stickers or anything. So that stayed the same. I added a little bit more to the top. It's a little thicker and more consistent all the way across. I changed out, most importantly, the entire way the train is propelled along the track is different. Instead of using the power functions train engines in both of the trucks, you now have two, I think it's called an L motor, to the power functions. It spins a little Technic axle. It's a different application of power than the train engines. Instead of having power applied to the four wheels, it's now just one engine that's geared to the rest of them. So it's actually stronger than the other ones were. So yeah, those are now mounted inside. We added another battery box and got new batteries because the battery box was dying on the old one. So that's all fixed up. All the power sources are better now. We have 2 IR receivers because that's just how it worked out. For if you use 2 power boxes, you can't connect 2 power boxes to one receiver. So you had to spread it out, and now but thankfully they both respond in the same channel, same frequency. So you turn one dial and it should go forward as long as each signal is receiving. Sometimes you have to kind of do this little move back and forth to make sure they both get the signal. But yep, that's about it. Everything else, like the details, the railings are about the same. Just a few changes to the roof to make sure that there's room for both receivers now, not just one. That's about it.
So before it had 2 engines and 1 power supply.
That's correct. Yeah.
And now has 2 power supplies and 2 engines, and you change the engine out to the more powerful.
Exactly.
Is there any way? Can we see any of the gearing without taking it apart? Is there any way
I think you could. Let me see if I can remove one of these panels here. So inside there, you can see there's gears going from the train downwards into there. They're then angled to the right and left into the wheels, where they have power applied to all 4 wheels on the bottom of the train.
Nice.
In 2 different sets, because you got one in the front and one in the back.
You had never really worked on anything like this before. This was a new challenge for you.
No, yeah, I don't use power functions that much. I've used it in some simple stuff like, for example, like a drawbridge or stuff like that.
Okay.
Simpler than this. And then I've never really worked on trains before. I think I've only built track a few times with my brother, and he has actually made trains. But yeah, so that was very new for me. But thankfully there's lots of pictures of trains online, so you can just type in BNSF train and it comes right up. You got all the different versions, and this one was designed up. I think it's more recent version of the train.
And so, what's the fate, the destiny of this guy? He's going out for sale?
Yes, I think he's just gonna go out for sale in our train area probably.
Okay.
And just as a kind of a special collectible train from Atlanta Bricka, because when you get stuff like this, that's just a custom one-off thing. Sometimes the best thing is to just fix it up really nice so that somebody will eventually buy it and cherish it. So yeah.
And that's something we did in this store because of you, because we have we have a Mark, we have our very own Mark. We're able to offer this custom design that didn't really work. I mean, it kind of worked in the beginning, but not really. But you were able to fix it where it ran on standard Lego track. It did better on the custom track, but it still worked on the standard Lego curve.
Even on those somewhat tight corners for this size of train, it still worked.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yep, so, a lot of fun. Glad we got it done.
Yep, we got to get back to work.
All right, we'll do that.